Coming up on Hands on Mac, let's take a look at some new changes to the Podcasts app, as well as some tips about setting up that app. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Welcome back to Hands on Mac. My name is Mikah Sargent, and this week we're going to take a look at something that's new to the Podcasts app for your iPhone, for your Mac, for your iPad, and it's actually pretty exciting. It's a feature that I've been waiting to see come to the Podcasts ecosystem for quite some time, and Apple is, of course, at the basis of that Podcasts ecosystem. It's Transcripts. It is the ability to see, read, search, copy, paste from text that is the representation of what's being said in a podcast. So let's head over to iOS to take a look, although I should note that many of the features, settings, and everything that I'll be showing you today is cross-system. Whether you're looking at it on a Mac or you're looking at it on an iPhone or an iPad, these settings and features are going to be available in all of those places. All right, here we are on an iPhone, and I have opened up the Apple Podcasts app. Now, the Apple Podcasts app, of course, has a home screen that has the podcasts that are kind of in your up next queue, as well as some of the shows that are just available across the entire system. And what we can do is take a look at some of these podcasts, and you need to have the understanding that when it comes to how Apple begins to transcribe text, or transcribe speech rather, in a podcast, that's all based on time. So within a little bit of time of the podcast being published, at some point it is transcribed and that transcript is made available. So just be aware that if you don't see the transcript right away, it doesn't mean that there's not a transcript. It just means that Apple is still waiting to get to the processing. Now, Apple has also made it possible for the people who are uploading their podcasts to specify the location of transcript information. So it could be that the transcript you were seeing was actually provided by the podcast publisher, and it's not simply just a podcast transcribed by Apple itself. But what we'll do is we'll take a look at Security Now, episode 966. And this is the episode called Morris II. And if we tap on the three dots, by the way, I'm currently playing this episode, so I tapped at the bottom to bring up this episode, and I tap on the three dots, and you'll notice that in this section it says download episode, go to show, save episode, mark as played, and report a concern. There's no option here for transcription. So what's going on? Well, we'll go to the episode, and in this section, we would be able to see if there was a transcript, the transcript would be here. That means that this episode has not yet made it through Apple's processing, and therefore there is not an episode. So what we want to do instead is look for an episode that has been transcribed. So I'm going to choose shows, and I am going to go to the public version of Security Now. And I am going to go to the episode from March 12th, and I'm going to tap on that episode. And then I'm going to scroll and see that, boom, there is a transcript. And you'll see that above, or rather below the word transcript, is a little indicator saying automatically generated. That lets us know that this transcript was generated by Apple. I can tap on that transcript and bring that up, and it shows the full transcript. Now, what's great about this is, for one thing, I can tap and hold on any part of this, and I can copy this text and share it elsewhere. It is treated as just as if it was text from elsewhere. I can choose find selection, so I can do kind of a deeper search. I can tap on a section. Let's see. A part of this, and I can tap play to have that part actually play. And I can also, of course, tap speak, which is going to speak it out loud with the speech on the phone. But what's better is up at the top right, I can tap search. And let's say I know that in this episode we talk about Morris, right? And so I want to scroll down to that part of the page, and from there I could tap play. And what that does is it passes the transcript along to this portion of the podcast, and I can start playing it from that part. Along with transcripts that are automatically generated, they're accessible via the episode page. But also, if I tap on play and bring this episode up like so, then I also can tap on the three dots. And remember, we talked earlier about what was available here. View transcript is now available. So I can choose that to bring up the text as well. So that's a quick look at transcripts. What's great about this is it means that I can do a search at the base of Apple Podcasts about any topic. And because there are now transcripts for so many of the podcasts that are made available by Apple in its index, then I am able to find topics, even if, like many of the shows that we post on the network, the title of the episode doesn't necessarily tell you exactly what is being talked about. By having that transcript information available, you can use that search functionality to do so. Now, if I ended it there, this would be kind of a short episode. And so I did want to also talk about the settings for podcasts, because these are some common questions that I see pop up when it comes to kind of how podcasts are being stored and how I can change what is being downloaded or not. So if I tap on the settings button to bring up the settings app, and I scroll all the way down until I find podcasts, which is in the media section: music, TV, photos, camera, books, podcasts, and game center. I'll tap on podcasts, and let's kind of take a look at some of these settings. The first settings are always going to be, or I should say are almost always going to be, the privacy settings. Whether Siri in search has podcasts access, whether it is able to display notifications, whether it has background app refresh, which of course allows it to do things in the background, and if it has access to your cellular data, if it's okay for it to connect and use cellular data whenever you're using the device. The next section is the sync library toggle. What this does is it tells your podcasts app that I want whatever I subscribe to, whatever I sync to, whatever I play, whatever I pause, whatever I delete, however I make changes to my library, I want that to be synced from this device, and any other device that I have sync library turned on, it will also sync on those devices. So you'll see that below it, if you're following along, the text reads, your shows, saved episodes, and stations will sync across all your devices. If there's a device that you use that you want to kind of be separated from that, you need to turn this setting off. That will keep that device kind of locked out from this option. Next is downloads. And this is a section that kind of lets you gain control over what you are downloading, obviously, from the Apple Podcasts library. If you choose to allow cellular data, maybe if it's a podcast you meant to get the audio version, but you accidentally clicked on the video version, for example, or tapped on the video version, you can set a limit for whether or not that podcast is able to download over cellular. You can say, I want you to always ask if we're downloading a podcast over cellular. I want you to ask if the podcast is over 200 megabytes when I download it over cellular, or I want you to just go ahead and always allow. I have an unlimited connection, so I will choose always allow when it comes to cellular downloads. Now, the next section says download when saving. I should say the next toggle, download when saving. That means that when you save a podcast, it goes ahead and downloads that entire podcast episode. Then there's remove played downloads. This is a setting that I recommend turning on. And what this does is 24 hours after you have played a podcast, it will remove that episode from your phone. So it's not going to hold on to it. It'll hold on to it for 24 hours just in case you want to go back, you want to listen to something, but it assumes that after 24 hours of having played it, you're good to let it go. I have that turned on. I don't want that stuff to save. You'll also notice that I have automatic downloads turned off. What this does is it goes ahead and automatically downloads the shows to which you are subscribed. or to which you are following in the new verbiage that Apple uses. Now, with automatic downloads, you can choose to allow those downloads to take place over cellular or not. The next section lets you choose based on a different set of criteria. So you can say, I want you to download and keep the latest episode per show. So whichever shows I follow, please go ahead and download the latest episode of those shows and always do so. The 2 latest episodes, 3 latest episodes, 5 latest episodes, or 10 latest episodes. Or you can say the last 24 hours of episodes, last 7 days, the last 14 days, the last 30 days, or you can just say any new episodes, just download and keep them. And those will automatically download. So anything else will go ahead and stay off of your phone. And if you manually download those episodes, so if you, let's say, for example, you have a podcast that you haven't listened to in a while, and there's an episode that you remember that you want to go back and listen to. It's a comedy podcast. So you go and you grab that. This is not going to affect that option. These are automatic downloads. It has nothing to do with any automatic downloads that you might do. The next section is called episode display, and this lets you choose to either hide or show played episodes. By default, they will be shown. So even if you've listened to the episode, you've played it, it will still show those episodes in your episode display. If you toggle this on, then it's going to hide those episodes as you have played them. So maybe you don't want to see them anymore. Continuous playback means that if you've got something else kind of in the queue, it will keep playing stuff after you've finished an episode. And then you have settings for external controls and skip. So for example, with the skip buttons, you can choose how far forward you want the skip to go. And this is an option of 10, 15, 30, 45, or 60 seconds. And then back 10, 15, 30, 45, or 60 seconds. So how far along and how far back you allow the podcast episode to be skipped as you're listening. And then there's the option for external controls. So many car controls and headphone controls have a forward and back option. It could be a double tap. It could be that there are 2 or 3 different buttons and each of them does something. Many cars have a forward and back button. You choose if you want that to become a skip button, which is forward/back, or if you want it to be a next previous button, meaning that it will navigate chapters and then episodes. So if an episode contains chapters, the next previous will navigate those chapters. If it doesn't contain chapters, it will go from the previous episode to the next episode. Last but not least is the privacy section. And basically, when you get the Podcasts app and you start using it, a unique identifier is created that helps to provide statistics about your use. If you tap Reset Identifier, it basically generates a new identifier for you. And so any previous information is no longer linked to that previous identifier that was generated. So this is just a privacy control to give yourself a little bit more control over how your usage is being tracked. Folks, that is going to bring us to the end of this episode of Hands on Mac. Ultimately, this was about showing you how to view and understand podcast transcripts now that they are available in the Podcasts app. I know many of you are listeners via the Apple Podcasts app, but it was also an opportunity to kind of talk about those further settings that have come up from time to time. And again, I remind you, many of these settings are available across iPad and Mac as well. So you'll be able to find much of that same language and understand how to control it there. If you have questions, if you have concerns, if you have suggestions, send those to me. Mikah at twit.tv is the email to get in touch with me. Of course, we publish this episode every Thursday. Thank you to you Club Twit members who make this show possible and who get to enjoy the video version. If you are listening to this and you want to watch it, you will need to join Club Twit, twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month, $84 a year to join the club. For those of you who are watching or tuning in via Club Twit, though, thanks so much. We appreciate your support. I'll see you next week for another episode of Hands on Mac. Bye-bye.